Hey everyone, it's Gina Trimarco with Women Your Mother Warned You About and Pivot 10 Results and Carolina Improv Company. This week I have the just the tip for you. This is actually an old tip, really an old story. And this one goes out to Rachel, especially because she loves this story so much and insists I always tell it. This is the toaster story. Many of you have heard this story before. For me, it's a story about my dad. But the story is really about supply and demand and standing in your value. And based on what we're going through right now at the time of this recording during the COVID-19 chaos and trying to maintain or keep our businesses going, it's really important to think about supply and demand because right now, we have a lot of supply, some of us, but not enough demand because people don't have cash or cash flow to spend. So this is the toaster story. So my first experience in sales, I'm pretty sure is my very first experience in sales was probably around age 10. My father made us work in a flea market every weekend, and nobody really wants to do that as a kid. I don't know. I didn't want to. I was a girly girl, and flea market was filthy, and we had to get up super early. And long story short, it was like the best thing my father could have ever done for us was to teach us so much about getting up, showing up, and interacting with people. And so I got my sales training in a flea market starting at age 10. And the toaster story is about a man that came up to my dad's booth, and my dad sold all kinds of things. He would fix things up. He would buy merchandise wholesale. We'll just leave it at that, to resell. He was also a self-taught locksmith, and he taught my brother and I how to make keys, which was really entertaining because when people walked up to us, they were a little weirded out by children cutting keys. But anyway, so he would fix things. So for instance, a toaster. So a man walks up to the table. It sounds like a joke I'm about to tell. A man walks up to the table and asks how much the toaster is. And my dad says, it's $5. And of course, it's the flea market. So people negotiate. Remember those days of negotiation? So my dad says it's $5. The guy says, I'll give you 3. And my dad says it's 5. And the guy says, I'll give you 4. And my dad says it's 5. And the guy gets irritated and he walks away. And as a child, I was a little bit embarrassed by this. Like, why not just take the money? The guy's offering you something. Why are you going back and forth like this? So think about how often we're uncomfortable in the sale, right? We're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll take 3. How many times have you done that where you negotiated for less than what you deserved or were valued because you didn't want to go back and forth in the negotiation, right? So the guy comes back 10 minutes later or so and says, I'll take the toaster for 5. And my dad says, it's 10. Just like that, the price went up. Now, talk about being mortified as a child. The guy obviously did not take the toaster. He left because he was angry about the value, the price changing. And so over the years, I would look back at that. And for many years, I used to talk about how that is a story about supply and demand. You know, the guy walked around, he couldn't find another toaster. Now that toaster became a good deal to him because he couldn't find another toaster. Well, for my dad, the toaster became more valuable, so the price went up. I also now look at it later down the line through the years that part of that was my dad standing in his value, that he was kind of stubborn and he was not going to give the guy the toaster for the original price, just out of principle, because that's how he was. So it's also something to think about too. How often have you maybe been disrespected by the potential customer or client because they didn't see your value? So supply and demand and standing in your value. Now, there's another piece to this toaster story, because I realized that toasters have become kind of a symbol in my life. So several years ago, I was looking for a new bank to bank at, and I posted on Facebook looking for recommendations. And there were several great recommendations of trying to get my business. And I said, who is willing to give me a free toaster if I move on my business accounts there? Because back in the day, some of you might remember that when you opened bank accounts, you would get like little gifts, or in the South, we say Circes. So I was kind of being funny saying, who's going to give me a toaster? I want a toaster. And so one of the banks said they would give me a toaster, even though it wasn't part of their offer. And I went with them. I mean, it wasn't just about the toaster. I had a relationship with people at that bank, but I went ahead and went with them. Shout out to CCMB, because they are still my bank for both of my businesses and personal. And sure enough, within 2 weeks, they mailed me a toaster. So toaster came to my house, as kind of just the fun in it. And so that was another cool way of how they, the bank looking for customers, were willing to step outside of the box and do something different, not part of their normal way of doing things, and to have fun with it and know that I was going to talk about it. And I'm still talking about it years later, and I still have the toaster. There's a story behind the toaster, but it's a personal story. I'll tell you another time, but I still have the toaster. So that is my tip of the week for you this week is supply and demand, stand in your value, and take the extra step to get the business. And know that right now, that while you think your what you offer has a lot of value, and it does, the demand might not be there right now. So how can you change the way you do some pricing, or change the way you do things for it to work within a reasonable demand for what customers can afford right now? So go make some toast. Have a great rest of the week.